Hello and welcome to my craft channel Susie Makes. It's all about taking you through a variety of crafts using video to show you how to do mainly the basics of each craft. At the moment we're working on knitting. Previously I've worked on crochet and cross stitch, and we have covered in knitting how to cast on using the thumb method and how to do the knit stitch and how to do the purl stitch. So today's video is about the garter stitch, a nice easy one. So here we have our cast on stitches of 10 stitches, and as we did in the knit stitch video, that's what we're going to do for our first row. So we go from front to back of the first stitch on the left hand needle, placing your right hand needle front to back like so. You take your yarn that leads to your ball of yarn, put it around your right hand needle, pull the needle through, and once you see that new stitch forming, take the loop off the left hand needle, and there you have your first knit stitch. And you go along doing exactly the same. Right hand needle front to back of the second stitch, yarn around your right hand needle, pull your right hand needle through, and as you see that second stitch coming through, take the rest of the loop off the left hand needle, being careful not to take too many loops. Excuse me. Being careful not to take too many loops off of the left hand needle. So we've made 2 stitches on the right hand needle, which means we should have 8 left on the left hand needle. So 2, 4, 6, yep. Excuse me. And that's what we do all the way along. Keeping a nice even tension in your yarn that you're holding on to there. If we let it go too slack, the knitted fabric will come up all loose and gappy. So you want a nice even tension. This can take a little bit of practice, but it will come, and I promise you it will look fabulous. So we've knitted our first row in garter stitch. Now to complete the garter stitch, remember I said in another video, knitted fabric is usually made up of rows, normally 1 stitch going one way, and to complete it another, or the same or another stitch going in the opposite direction. Well, for garter stitch, going back to the beginning, and I always know my beginning is where my tail end is actually hanging off. Going back to the beginning, we do exactly the same, another knit row. And that is just how you do garter stitch. Every row knit. A lovely stitch for practicing not only your knit stitches. Now we're going to do another row, but for practicing keeping an even tension with your yarn. So that's row 3. I'll do one more and we'll have a good close look at the pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right, so we put the work the right way round, and you may think, how do I know which is the right way round? As I said before, I know because my tail end, for me, the way I knit, the way I always start, sits on the right hand side when it's facing the right way. So this would be the right way. This would be the right side with the tail sitting on the right side. That's my working yarn. And on the back, actually looks virtually exactly the same for garter stitch, doesn't it? I'll just do 2 more rows so I can now show you how to count garter stitch rows. There's a lot of patterns do require you to keep an eye on the amount of rows that you are knitting. And counting rows is a little bit different depending on the stitch that you're making at the time. Here we are now, nearly at the end. So that's 6 rows I've knitted all together. Now, 6 rows I count. Now that just looks like this lovely ridge pattern, which has a nice springy-ish texture. Just looks like 1, 2 rows, doesn't it? But when you're counting garter stitch, you count each ridge, if you can see. So that's 2 rows, and that's 2 rows, and obviously we started here. So you actually count each ridge as 2, 2, 4, 6, and that's how many rows I have knitted. I don't know if that'll show up any better if I try and get it closer, or if it'll just go blurry. Those tail ends can get in the way a little bit sometimes. Okay, so this is 2, 4, 6. If you just count it in single digits, it'll look like 1, 2, 3. Looks like you've only done 3 rows. But with garter stitch, because as you can see, each stitch seems to have a little link that sits on the bottom and the one that sits on the top, and that's what they're doing, interlinking into each other. So every time you do a knit row, so an even number of knit rows, you will have 1 full ridge. So that's 2, 4, 6. So one of these would have been the knit row going one way, and coming back the other way would have formed the top link. And that's how you count your garter stitches. Thank you for stopping by Susie Makes and watching this video. If you'd like to be alerted for when future craft videos come up, we will be covering many crafts, as I said earlier, then please do subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for stopping by.